The first thing you need to understand is that 8 o'clock in the morning inside the lobby of Whitfield and Associates smells like espresso and expensive paper. Polished marble floors, a waterfall feature built into the wall, 14 people standing around the reception desk holding travel mugs, laughing about something someone said at a dinner party nobody from the outside would ever get invited to. And then the elevator doors opened. Isaac Owens stepped out wearing a white shirt so crisp it looked like it had been ironed by someone who cared about him. Dark tie, black shoes polished the night before. A leather briefcase his father gave him for graduation. He was 22 years old, 6 feet 1 inch tall, and he had been awake since 5:30 in the morning, running through every possible scenario his first day could throw at him. He did not run through this one. Derek Caldwell saw him first. Derek was 43 years old, head of corporate strategy, the kind of senior executive who believed his parking spot was a constitutional right. He stood near the coffee station with a ceramic mug in one hand and a phone in the other. And when he looked up and saw Isaac walking toward the reception desk, something shifted in his face. Not curiosity, not recognition, the same look a homeowner gives a fly that somehow made it inside the screen door. Nobody said anything for 3 full seconds. That's a long time in a room full of ambitious people who usually fill silence with performative laughter. Isaac smiled. Small, polite, professional. He extended his hand toward the receptionist and said, "Good morning, Isaac Owens. First day. Finance intern." The receptionist opened her mouth to respond. But Derek got there first. He didn't set his coffee down. He didn't step closer. He just tilted his head slightly to the left and said loud enough for all 14 people to hear, "Who let this roach in?" The lobby stopped. Not the kind of pause where people keep scrolling on their phones. The kind where hands freeze. Where breath catches. Where a woman named Patricia, who had worked at Whitfield for 19 years, felt her chest tighten because she knew exactly what was about to happen. And she also knew she wasn't going to stop it. Isaac's hand remained extended for another second. Then he lowered it. Slowly, deliberately. His face didn't change. Derek laughed. Nobody else did. "I'm sorry," Derek said, stepping forward now, tilting his mug toward Isaac like he was pointing a remote at a television he didn't respect. "Did HR send you up here? Because I specifically told them we needed someone from Wharton or Columbia. Not, what was the neighborhood again?" Isaac said nothing. He just looked at Derek, not staring, not glaring, looking. The way you look at a math problem you already know the answer to, but you want to see if the person explaining it realizes they're wrong. Derek didn't like that. You could see it in his jaw, the way his back teeth pressed together. He was used to people laughing at his jokes, used to people shrinking, used to that nervous, please like me energy that interns always brought into his orbit. Isaac wasn't giving him anything. So Derek decided to take something. "Let me ask you a question," Derek said, stepping closer. Now the 14 witnesses could smell the espresso on his breath. "Can you read a spreadsheet? Or do I need to use smaller words?" Someone in the back giggled. A junior associate named Troy Anderson, 26 years old, desperately trying to signal that he was on Derek's team. Isaac didn't even look at him. "I can read spreadsheets," Isaac said. Quiet, calm. His voice didn't shake. "Oh, you can read spreadsheets," Derek repeated, mocking the tone, drawing the words out like taffy. "Well, everybody hear that? We got a spreadsheet reader. Howard or Harvard?" Isaac paused, just long enough for the room to feel it. "Howard," Derek made a face. Exaggerated surprise. The kind of performance a narcissist gives when they want everyone to know they're performing. "Howard," he said. Okay. So you know how to read spreadsheets from Howard. That's cute. That's really cute." He took another step. Now he was close enough to touch Isaac's shirt. Close enough that Isaac could see the small veins in Derek's eyes from the red wine he drank the night before. "Here's the thing about Whitfield," Derek said. Quieter now, but not quiet enough. The receptionist heard him. The 14 witnesses heard him. "We don't hire charity cases. We don't do diversity checkboxes, we bring in people who actually belong here. So whoever lied to get you through the door, that's going to be a problem. For you. For them, for everybody who has to clean up this mess. I was hired through the standard internship application process. My resume was reviewed by 3 department heads. I have a signed offer letter. Derek smiled. It was the ugliest smile Isaac had ever seen. You think a piece of paper matters? You think your little signed offer letter means something in this building? He turned to the 14 witnesses. Open arms, like a preacher asking for an amen. Who here thinks this guy belongs in our conference rooms? Who here thinks he's going to sit across from our clients? Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Troy Anderson looked at his shoes. Patricia, the receptionist, stared at her keyboard. Haley Moore, a 21-year-old intern from Boston College, watched from the edge of the group and felt something move in her stomach. Something that felt like shame. She looked away. Derek turned back to Isaac. See? Nobody. Then he looked down at his coffee mug. Hot, freshly poured. Black. And he tilted it. Very slowly. Very deliberately. He tilted the mug until the coffee spilled over the rim, splashing first onto Isaac's tie, then spreading across the chest of that crisp white shirt, dark brown blooming against white cotton like a flower made of heat. Isaac didn't move, didn't flinch. The coffee soaked through to his skin, hot enough to leave a red mark he would still have when he got home that night. Derek watched it happen like he was watching a sunset he didn't care about. Now you look the part, Derek whispered. Street rat. He walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. He had 14 witnesses who already decided they didn't see anything. Isaac stood there for 10 seconds, coffee dripping off his chin onto the marble floor. 14 people pretending to be invisible. Patricia, the receptionist, couldn't even hand him a napkin. She just sat there with her hands in her lap, breathing through her mouth, waiting for him to leave so she could stop feeling like a coward. Isaac reached into his briefcase, pulled out a handkerchief, pressed it against his shirt. The coffee had already stained through. There was no saving it. He looked at Patricia. My welcome packet, he said. Please. She couldn't meet his eyes. She opened a drawer, pulled out a thin manila folder, and slid it across the counter like she was handing over evidence she hoped would never be reviewed. Isaac took it, opened it, saw a single sheet of paper with his name misspelled and a map that led to a floor he hadn't even known existed. Thank you, he said. Then he walked down the hallway, past the glass-walled intern suite where 5 desks faced the morning sun. 5 brand-new MacBooks sat charging on each desk, next to welcome kits that included branded notebooks, engraved pens, leather portfolios, and a small box of gourmet chocolates tied with a silver ribbon. A fruit platter sat in the center of the table. Fresh strawberries, green grapes, pineapple cut into little stars. Haley Moore sat at the desk closest to the door. She saw Isaac walk past, saw the coffee stains spreading across his chest, saw the way he held his briefcase like it weighed nothing, even though she knew it probably felt like the heaviest thing he had ever carried. She wanted to say something, anything. A simple, "Are you okay?" would have been enough. Would have cost her nothing. She looked back at her screen. Isaac kept walking, past the break room where someone had left a cake from last night's celebration, past the conference rooms with their glass walls and leather chairs, past the corner offices with their nameplates and their potted plants and their views of the city. The hallway got narrower. The carpet got older. The lights started to flicker. He passed a janitor's closet, a storage room filled with boxes of old letterhead, a bathroom that smelled like bleach and regret. And then he found the last door on the left. There was no nameplate, no window, just a heavy wooden door with a handle that squeaked when he turned it. Inside, a single fluorescent light buzzed overhead, flickering every few seconds, casting the room in that sickly green color that makes everything look diseased. A concrete wall on one side, a mop bucket in the corner. Boxes of archived binders stacked against the back wall, the kind of binders nobody has opened since the Clinton administration. In the center of the room sat a folding table, the metal kind you rent for a church picnic. Wobbly legs, scratched surface. Next to it, a folding chair that looked like it had been purchased at a garage sale in 1997. No computer, no phone, no welcome kit, no fruit platter with little star-shaped pineapples. Isaac set his briefcase on the folding table, sat down in the folding chair. The metal groaned under his weight. He looked at the mop bucket, looked at the flickering light, looked at the concrete wall that had probably never seen sunlight in its entire existence. He didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't call anyone. He opened his briefcase, pulled out his own laptop, a $200 used ThinkPad he had bought off a surplus site and repaired himself, and placed it on the folding table. He connected to the guest Wi-Fi because nobody had given him the company network password. He opened a browser, pulled up the SEC database, and started pulling Whitfield and Associates' public quarterly filings. The work was good, not just good. Excellent. Isaac had been reading financial disclosures since he was 16 years old, sitting at his father's kitchen table, learning how to spot the difference between aggressive accounting and outright fraud. He knew what to look for, knew where companies hid their liabilities, knew how to read between the lines of a footnote. By 9:30, he had identified 3 discrepancies in the Q2 filing. By 10:15, he had cross-referenced them against the previous 5 quarters and found a pattern. By 11 o'clock, he had started building a preliminary audit sheet that was more thorough than anything the company's own internal audit team had produced in the last 2 years. Nobody knew he was doing this. Nobody cared. The other interns were in their glass-walled suite, taking turns showing off their new MacBooks, laughing about something funny that happened during orientation. They didn't even know Isaac existed. And if they did, they didn't want to. At 11:30, Haley Moore walked past the storage room on her way to the bathroom. The door was cracked open. She saw Isaac sitting at the folding table, working on his ancient laptop, his white shirt still stained with coffee. She stopped for half a second, thought about knocking, thought about introducing herself. Then, she kept walking. At noon, a group of interns walked past Isaac's door on their way to the break room. They were laughing. One of them, a tall blonde kid from Dartmouth whose name Isaac would never learn, said something about how the new guy probably didn't even know where the break room was. More laughter. Fading footsteps. Silence. Isaac ate a sandwich from a brown paper bag. He had packed it himself that morning. Turkey, Swiss, mustard, an apple, a bottle of water. He ate slowly, deliberately, chewing each bite like it was a decision he had made on purpose. At 12:30, his phone buzzed. A text message from a contact saved simply as Dad. How's day one? Isaac looked at the message for a long time. His thumb hovered over the keyboard. He thought about typing the truth. Thought about typing one sentence that would end everything. One sentence that would bring his father walking through those doors with fire in his eyes and Derek Caldwell's career in his pocket. He typed, "Landed fine, first day. Love you, Dad." Then he put the phone away and went back to work. By 2 o'clock, Isaac had compiled a 12-page preliminary audit sheet, 3 actionable recommendations, full citations, cross-referenced footnotes, executive summary on page 1. He saved the document, closed his laptop, and sat in the silence of the storage room, listening to the fluorescent light buzz overhead. That's when Derek Caldwell appeared in the doorway. He must have heard about the audit sheet. Someone must have seen Isaac working and mentioned it. Maybe one of the administrative assistants who felt bad enough to check on him, but not bad enough to do anything about it. Derek stood there with his arms crossed, his expensive shoes planted on the dirty carpet, his face arranged in an expression of amused contempt. "Still here," Derek said. Not a question, an observation. Like he was surprised a cockroach had survived the first round of poison. Isaac looked up. "Yes. Working on what exactly?" "Preliminary audit of Q2 filings. I noticed a few discrepancies in the revenue recognition section. Nothing material yet, but the pattern suggests..." Derek laughed, a short, sharp sound like a door slamming. "You think you're going to fix our books? Day one? From a storage room on a laptop you probably stole?" Isaac didn't react. "I'm here to contribute. That's what interns do." Derek stepped into the room. The space was so small that his presence made it feel even smaller. He leaned over the folding table close enough that Isaac could smell his cologne. something expensive. Something that probably cost more than Isaac's entire wardrobe. Let me tell you something about contribution, Derek said, his voice low and mean. Contribution is for people who belong here, people whose last names open doors, people whose parents know my parents. You understand what I'm saying? Isaac understood. He understood perfectly. He also understood that Derek had no idea who his father was. No idea that Nathaniel Owens, founder and CEO of Whitfield and Associates, had raised Isaac in a house where hard work was the only currency that mattered. No idea that Isaac had turned down a guaranteed corner office to earn his place the old-fashioned way. Isaac could have ended it right there. One phone call, one name, one sentence that would have made Derek Caldwell's face drain of every drop of blood. Instead, he said, "I understand." Derek smiled, that ugly smile again. "Good. Then you also understand that I'm going to make your life a living hell until you quit. Because you will quit. They always do." He turned and walked out. Didn't close the door, left it hanging open like an insult. Isaac sat there for a long moment. Then he reached out, pulled the door closed, and went back to work. At 3 o'clock, Derek gathered Troy Anderson and 2 other junior associates in his office. The door was closed, but the walls were glass, and anyone walking past could see Derek pointing at something on his computer screen, his face tight with something that looked like fear disguised as anger. "He's still there," Derek said. "He's still sitting in that storage room like he belongs here." Troy shifted in his seat. "Maybe he's just stubborn." "No," Derek said. "He's dangerous. You saw that audit sheet. 12 pages. In one morning. From a used laptop on guest Wi-Fi. That's not normal. So what do you want to do?" Derek thought about it, tapped his finger on his desk, looked out the window at the city spread out below him like a kingdom he thought he owned. "Pull him from the briefing," Derek said. "Tell reception to take his name off the attendance list. I want him to know he doesn't exist. I want him to feel invisible until he can't take it anymore." Troy nodded. "And the audit sheet? Delete it. Or take credit for it. I don't care. Just make sure nobody knows it came from him." At 4 o'clock, the weekly team briefing was announced. Conference Room B. All interns required to attend. The rule was printed clearly in the intern handbook, the same handbook that sat on every MacBook in the glass-walled suite. Isaac stood up from his folding chair, straightened his tie, walked down the narrow hallway toward the bright part of the floor where the carpet was newer and the lights didn't flicker. He saw the other interns filing into Conference Room B. Haley Moore was near the back of the line. She saw him coming. Their eyes met for half a second. Then she looked away, turned her body slightly, and walked through the door without acknowledging him. Isaac reached the door. A woman from HR stood there with a clipboard checking names. "Isaac Owens," he said. She looked at her clipboard, flipped a page, looked again. "I don't have you on the list," she said. "I'm an intern. Finance. Started today." She shook her head. "If you're not on the list, you can't come in." Isaac looked past her into the conference room. Derek was standing at the head of the table watching him, smiling that ugly smile. Isaac could see the pleasure in Derek's eyes, the satisfaction of a small cruelty executed perfectly. Isaac didn't argue, didn't raise his voice, didn't demand to speak to a supervisor. He turned around and walked back to the storage room. Inside, he opened the intern handbook on his laptop, screenshotted the page that said all interns were required to attend weekly briefings, saved the image to a folder on his desktop labeled simply Records. Then he took his phone out, opened the camera, held it at arm's length, and took a photo of himself sitting at the folding table with the mop bucket in the background and the flickering fluorescent light casting green shadows across his face. The coffee stain was still visible on his shirt. He made sure it was visible. He made sure the photo captured everything. He saved that image to the same folder. Then he opened another folder inside Records and started a document, a timeline, every interaction, every word, every witness. He typed it all with the precision of someone who had been trained by a father who taught him that documentation was the difference between justice and silence. At 5 o'clock, Isaac hit send. His 12-page audit sheet went to Derek Caldwell's email address. No cover note, no explanation. Just the document attached to an empty message with the subject line, Q2 preliminary audit. Derek opened it 3 minutes later. He read the first page. Then the second. His jaw tightened. His back teeth pressed together. He read the third page and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Genuine, professional fear. This wasn't the work of an intern. This was the work of someone who understood the business better than he did. Someone who had spotted things Derek himself had missed. Someone who, if given the chance, could make Derek look incompetent in front of the entire firm. Derek couldn't allow that. He clicked Reply All, copied the entire 46-person department, and typed, "Team, friendly reminder that interns are not to send unsolicited reports to senior leadership. While enthusiasm is appreciated, there are proper channels for submitting work product. Let's keep the inbox clean and professional. Thank you." He hit send before he could think twice about it. The email landed in 46 inboxes simultaneously. 46 people opened it. 46 people read Derek's words and understood exactly what was happening. Some of them felt bad. Some of them felt nothing. Most of them just felt relieved it wasn't happening to them. In the storage room, Isaac's laptop pinged. He opened the email, read it once, read it twice. Then he closed his laptop, pressed his thumb into the surface of the folding table, and pushed until his nail turned white. He sat there in the flickering green light, breathing slowly, feeling the heat of the day pressing against his chest like a weight. He thought about calling his father, thought about ending everything with one phone call. One conversation that would bring Nathaniel Owens down from the 14th floor and turn Derek Caldwell into a cautionary tale. Isaac whispered to himself in the dark, "Not yet." The next morning, Isaac arrived at 7:30. Earlier than before, a fresh white shirt, a new tie, the same briefcase, the same quiet determination. He walked through the lobby past the same marble floors and the same waterfall feature and the same espresso machine that nobody offered to show him how to use. Patricia, the receptionist, saw him and immediately looked down at her keyboard. She had seen the email. She knew what Derek had done. She also knew she wasn't going to do anything about it. Isaac made his way to the storage room, sat down at the folding table, opened his laptop, and then he noticed something different. A small stack of papers had been placed outside his door. A welcome kit. The same branded notebook and engraved pen that the other interns had received. No note, no explanation, just the kit sitting there on the dirty carpet like someone had left it in the middle of the night. Isaac picked it up, looked around the hallway. Nobody was there. He didn't know it yet. But Brenda Sullivan, the administrative professional who had worked at Whitfield for 12 years and watched Derek destroy at least 7 careers in that time, had left the kit outside his door at 6:45 that morning. She had stood there for 30 seconds, her hand hovering over the doorknob, trying to decide whether to knock. She hadn't knocked. She had just left the kit and walked away, feeling ashamed of her own cowardice, but not ashamed enough to actually speak up. Isaac took the kit inside, set it on the folding table, didn't open it, just looked at it for a long moment, wondering who had left it and why they hadn't stayed to say hello. At 8:15, Derek Caldwell walked past the storage room with 3 executives from a Fortune 500 partner company. They were doing a walkthrough, showing off the facilities, demonstrating the kind of polished professionalism that Whitfield and Associates was known for. Derek spotted Isaac at the coffee station in the main break room. Isaac was pouring himself a cup, standing quietly, not bothering anyone. Derek saw an opportunity. "Isaac," he called out, loud enough for the executives to hear. "Come here." Isaac turned, walked over, held his coffee cup in his right hand. Derek put his arm around Isaac's shoulders, the way a predator puts its paw on its prey. "This is one of our interns," Derek said to the executives, smiling warmly. "Great kid, very eager. Isaac, I need you to run an errand for me." Isaac said nothing. "I left my dry cleaning downstairs. Gray suit, blue shirt. You'll see it. Also, I need a lunch order from that little Italian place on Grand. The one with the good bread. You know the one? Isaac set his coffee cup down on the counter. I'm a finance intern. I was hoping to help with project-related tasks today. Derek's smile didn't falter, but his eyes went cold. Project-related tasks, he repeated, turning to the executives. You hear that? Project-related tasks. That's adorable. The executives laughed nervously. They didn't know what was happening, but they knew enough not to get in the middle of it. Derek turned back to Isaac. Here's the thing about project-related tasks, Isaac. Your project today is to hold my coffee, carry my bags, and keep your mouth shut. Can you do that? Can you handle that level of complexity? He reached out and picked up the coffee cup Isaac had just set down. It was still hot. Steam rose from the surface. Derek held it out to Isaac, not handing it to him, but placing it directly into his hands, wrapping Isaac's fingers around the cup, one by one, forcing his grip. There you go, Derek said softly. Now you look the part. Isaac stood perfectly still. The cup was hot against his palms. He could feel the heat seeping into his skin. He looked at Derek's face, saw the cruelty there, saw the enjoyment, saw a man who had never been told no by anyone who mattered. Isaac set the cup back down on the counter, didn't spill a drop, didn't make a sound. He looked Derek directly in the eye, held the gaze for a full 3 seconds, and then turned and walked back toward the storage room. Derek watched him go. His smile finally faded. The executives stood in awkward silence, shuffling their feet, checking their phones, pretending they hadn't seen anything. Brenda Sullivan had seen everything. She was standing near the copy machine, holding a stack of papers she had been pretending to sort for the last 5 minutes. She had watched Derek humiliate the young black intern in front of clients, had watched him wrap the intern's fingers around a hot coffee cup, had watched the intern walk away without saying a word. Brenda had worked at Whitfield for 12 years. She had seen Derek do things like this before, seen him mock a Latina associate until she cried in the bathroom, seen him assign a black analyst to the windowless basement office, seen him make jokes about diversity hires that made her stomach turn. She had never said anything, never filed a complaint, never even made eye contact with the people Derek targeted. She told herself it wasn't her place, told herself she had a mortgage to pay, told herself someone else would handle it. Someone else never did. But watching Isaac walk away from that coffee station, holding himself together with a dignity that made Brenda's own cowardice feel like a physical weight, something shifted inside her. Something cracked. That night, she went home and didn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over, feeling the shame press against her chest like a hand. The next morning, she came in early, left the welcome kit outside Isaac's door, didn't knock, didn't leave a note, just walked away, hoping that would be enough to quiet the voice in her head that kept asking, "What kind of person are you?" Meanwhile, Isaac had decided to try the proper channels. At 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning, he took the elevator down to the 12th floor. HR department. Glass doors, neutral colors. A receptionist who smiled too brightly and asked how she could help. I need to speak with Carlton Davis, Isaac said. Carlton Davis was the director of human resources, a black man in his late 50s who had been at Whitfield for 20 years. He had a corner office, a degree from Cornell, a reputation for being fair, measured, and completely unwilling to rock the boat. Isaac was shown into Carlton's office. Carlton closed the door, sat down behind his desk, folded his hands on the leather blotter. "What can I do for you, son?" Isaac opened his briefcase, pulled out the timeline he had been building. The photos, the screenshots, the email from Derek. He laid everything out on Carlton's desk with the precision of someone presenting evidence in a courtroom. "I've been subjected to harassment and discrimination since my first hour in this building," Isaac said. "I have documentation. I have witnesses. I'm requesting a formal investigation." Carlton listened, didn't interrupt, took notes on a yellow legal pad. His face was neutral, professional, unrevealing. When Isaac finished, Carlton sat back in his chair and looked at the papers spread across his desk. "This is serious," Carlton said. "Yes, sir. I'll need to investigate. Give me 48 hours. Isaac nodded, stood up, shook Carlton's hand, walked out of the office feeling something he hadn't felt in days: hope. It lasted 90 seconds. Because as soon as Isaac stepped into the elevator, Carlton Davis picked up his phone and called Derek Caldwell directly. Not legal, not the ethics hotline, not the corporate compliance officer. Derek Caldwell. We have a problem, Carlton said. Your intern just filed a complaint. Derek's voice was calm. Too calm. What kind of complaint? Harassment? Discrimination. He's got documentation, Derek. Photos. A timeline. A pause. Then, what are you going to do about it? Carlton rubbed his forehead. He knew what he should do. Launch an investigation. Escalate to legal. Take the complaint seriously. That was the policy. That was the law. That was the right thing. But he also knew that Derek sat on the Leadership Review Board, the same board that approved HR's budget, the same board that decided which departments got bonuses and which got cuts, the same board that could make Carlton's life very difficult if he became a problem. I'm going to handle it, Carlton said finally. Handle it how? Informal feedback. No formal action. I'll tell him we looked into it and found nothing substantiated. Derek was quiet for a moment. Then, good. That's what I pay you for. He hung up. Carlton sat there for a long time, staring at his legal pad. Then he drew a thick line through Isaac's complaint, wrote, informal feedback, no action required. He slid the papers into a drawer and locked it. By Tuesday afternoon, the word had spread. Not the truth. Derek had made sure of that. He had attended the intern lunch that day, something he had never done before, and bought coffee for all 5 interns in the glass-walled suite. He had sat with them, laughed with them, asked them about their schools and their goals and their families. And then he had mentioned Isaac. That 6th intern? Derek had said, shaking his head sadly. The one in the storage room. I feel bad for him, honestly. He's just not a team player. High maintenance, low value. Keeps sending unsolicited reports to senior leadership like he thinks he's already running the place. Haley Moore had listened to this, had watched Derek's face as he spoke, had seen the way his eyes glittered when he said the words high maintenance and low value. She had wanted to say something, had wanted to point out that Isaac had never been given a chance, that he was working in a storage room, that his welcome kit had been left outside his door like a charity donation. She had said nothing. By the time lunch was over, the herd had turned. The other interns stopped acknowledging Isaac entirely. They walked past his door without looking. They laughed a little louder when they passed, just to make sure he heard them. They decided, without ever saying it out loud, that Isaac was the problem. Derek reassigned Isaac's only project to Troy Anderson, called facilities and had them move Isaac's folding table out of the storage room. Not to another office, not to a cubicle. To a dead-end corner next to the service elevator, a spot behind old filing cabinets that nobody ever walked past unless they were taking out the trash. Isaac arrived on Wednesday morning to find his table gone, his laptop gone, his welcome kit gone. He walked down the hallway, past the storage room, past the conference rooms, past the break room, until he reached the service elevator. And there, behind a wall of filing cabinets, was his folding table, his folding chair, his laptop, his welcome kit. A mop bucket had been placed next to his chair, not as storage, as decoration. Isaac sat down, opened his laptop. The fluorescent light above him flickered in a different rhythm now, faster, more erratic, like it was trying to send a message he couldn't quite decode. He worked in silence. The service elevator opened and closed every few minutes. Maintenance workers came and went. A janitor asked him if he was lost. Isaac said no. The janitor shrugged and walked away. At 3:45 that afternoon, the building changed. That's how it felt. Not like something had happened, like something had shifted. The energy on the 14th floor went from casual to electric in the span of a single elevator ding. Nathaniel Owens stepped off the elevator. He was 61 years old, tall, broad-shouldered, a face that had been in business magazines and on Forbes covers, and in the background of photographs taken at charity galas and university graduations. He wore a dark suit that fit him perfectly and carried a leather briefcase that matched the one he had given his son for graduation. He had been gone for 5 weeks. London, Frankfurt, Singapore, negotiating deals that would determine the direction of Whitfield and Associates for the next decade. He had slept on planes and in hotels and had missed his son's first day. He was tired, he was jet-lagged, and he was looking for Isaac. The floor scrambled, people stood up straighter, smiled wider, typed faster. The kind of performance that happens when the person who signs your checks walks through the door. Derek Caldwell rushed to greet him. "Mr. Owens, welcome back. We've missed you." Nathaniel shook his hand. Brief, firm, professional. "Good to be back, Derek. How's the new intern class?" Derek smiled. "Excellent. Best group we've had in years. Very sharp. Very motivated. I'd like to meet them." Derek's smile flickered. "Just for a moment. Of course. Right this way." He led Nathaniel to the glass-walled intern suite. The 5 interns stood up as Nathaniel entered. They introduced themselves one by one. Dartmouth, Boston College, University of Michigan, Northwestern, Cornell. Nathaniel shook each hand, asked each one a question, made each one feel seen. Then he looked around the room, counted the desks, counted the interns. "Derek," Nathaniel said, his voice calm but curious. "I saw 6 names on the intake list. There are 5 people in this room." Derek's face did something complicated. A twitch near his left eye, a slight tightening of his jaw. "The 6th intern," he said carefully, "he's getting oriented. Different workspace." Nathaniel looked at him. "Different workspace?" "Yes, sir. We thought it would be best to give him some space to acclimate. He's still learning the systems." Nathaniel didn't say anything for a moment. He just looked at Derek with the kind of stare that had made Fortune 500 CEOs squirm across negotiation tables. "I want to see him." Derek's smile returned, but it was brittle now, strained. "Of course. I'll have him come to your office." "No," Nathaniel said. "I'll go to him." The walk from the intern suite to the service elevator took 2 minutes. 2 minutes of Derek making excuses. "It's just temporary. We're renovating the other spaces. He seems to prefer the quiet." Nathaniel didn't respond. He just walked. Past the bright open-plan offices, past the conference rooms with their glass walls, past the break room with its espresso machine and its fruit platter and its cake from last night's celebration. The hallway got narrower, the carpet got older, the lights started to flicker, and then Nathaniel turned the corner and saw the filing cabinets, saw the service elevator, saw the mop bucket, and saw his son. Isaac was sitting at a folding table, working on a cheap laptop, his back to the concrete wall, a fluorescent light buzzing overhead. His white shirt was clean, he had learned to pack extras, but there was something in his posture that broke Nathaniel's heart. A weariness, a loneliness. The look of a young man who had been fighting a war alone and was too proud to call for reinforcements. The corridor fell silent. The maintenance workers who had been walking past stopped. An administrative assistant froze with a stack of papers in her hands. Derek stood behind Nathaniel, his face pale, his mouth opening and closing like a fish that had just realized it was out of water. Nathaniel walked toward his son. Slowly, deliberately, his shoes made no sound on the dirty carpet. Isaac looked up, saw his father, didn't smile, didn't speak, just met his father's eyes and held the gaze. Nathaniel stopped in front of the folding table, looked at the mop bucket, looked at the filing cabinets, looked at the service elevator, looked at the fluorescent light that was still buzzing, still flickering, still casting that sickly green glow across his son's face. "Isaac," Nathaniel said. His voice was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before something breaks. "Stand up and let me look at you." Isaac stood. The 2 men faced each other. Same height, same build, same jawline, same quiet dignity, Nathaniel pulled his son into an embrace, held him tight, whispered something in his ear that nobody else could hear. Then he let go, turned around, and looked at Derek Caldwell. Derek's face had lost all its color. His lips were slightly parted, his hands were shaking. He knew. In that moment, standing in that dirty hallway with the mop bucket and the flickering light, Derek Caldwell knew exactly who Isaac Owens was. Mr. Owens, Derek stammered. There were space issues. We didn't have enough room in the intern suite. It was only temporary. Nathaniel cut him off. Not loudly, not with anger, with the quiet authority of a man who had spent his entire life learning that the most dangerous words are spoken softly. Why is my intern sitting next to a freight elevator? Derek opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. The silence stretched, and then a voice came from behind them. A woman's voice. Shaking, unsteady, but loud enough for everyone to hear. Mr. Owens? Nathaniel turned. Brenda Sullivan stood there, holding the stack of papers she had been pretending to sort, her face pale, her hands trembling. She had been standing at the copy machine when Nathaniel walked past, had watched him turn the corner, had followed without meaning to. Mr. Owens, Brenda said again, I think there are some things you need to know. Derek's head snapped toward her. His eyes were wild, desperate. Brenda, don't. I've worked here for 12 years, Brenda continued, her voice growing stronger now, pushed forward by something she had been holding back for a decade. And I have watched him do this to people. Over and over. He poured coffee on this young man's shirt. On his first day. In front of 14 people. He called him a roach. He called him a street rat. He wrapped his fingers around a hot coffee cup and made him hold it. Derek took a step toward her. That's a lie. I have emails, Brenda said. I have notes. I have kept records for years because I knew someday someone would ask and I wanted to be able to tell them the truth. I just never thought I would be brave enough to actually do it. She looked at Isaac, her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, she said. I should have said something on day one. I should have said something 5 years ago. I'm sorry. Nathaniel stood perfectly still, his face revealed nothing. But anyone who knew him, anyone who had ever negotiated against him, would have recognized the stillness, the gathering calm before the storm. Conference room A, Nathaniel said. 5 minutes, everyone. He looked at Derek. You especially. Then he put his hand on Isaac's shoulder and walked him out of that dirty hallway, past the filing cabinets, past the service elevator, past the mop bucket, toward the bright part of the floor where the lights didn't flicker, and the truth was about to land like a bomb. Conference room A was the largest conference room on the 14th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, a table that seated 24, video conferencing equipment that cost more than most people's cars. It was where Nathaniel closed deals, where he made decisions that affected thousands of lives. Today, it was where he was going to destroy Derek Caldwell. The room filled quickly. Department heads, senior executives, the 5 interns from the glass-walled suite. Haley Moore sat near the back, her hands clasped in her lap, her heart pounding so hard, she could feel it in her throat. She knew she had done something wrong. She didn't know yet how wrong. Brenda Sullivan sat near the front. She had stopped crying. Her face was calm now, resolved, the face of someone who had finally decided that her mortgage was less important than her soul. Carlton Davis sat at the far end of the table. He was sweating. His yellow legal pad was in front of him, but he wasn't writing anything. He was staring at the table, trying to remember if he had locked that drawer. Derek stood near the windows, his back to the room, his hands shoved in his pockets. He wasn't looking at anyone. He was looking at the city, at the buildings he had spent 15 years climbing, at the empire he had helped build, and he was calculating his chances. They were not good. Nathaniel sat at the head of the table. Isaac sat to his right. The resemblance was impossible to miss now. The same hands, the same posture, the same way of sitting completely still while everyone else in the room squirmed. Isaac, Nathaniel said, tell me what happened. Isaac opened his briefcase, pulled out the folder labeled Records, laid the photos on the table. The screenshot of the intern handbook, the email from Derek, the timeline, the photos of the storage room, the photo of himself with the coffee stain and the mop bucket and the flickering light. And then he told the story. He didn't raise his voice, didn't embellish, didn't editorialize. He just laid out the facts with the cold precision of someone who had been trained by a father who believed that the truth, fully told, was the most powerful weapon in any room. When he finished, the silence was absolute. Nathaniel turned to Brenda. Your turn. Brenda took a deep breath, and then she told her story. Not just about Isaac. About the Latina associate who had cried in the bathroom. About the black analyst who had been exiled to the basement. About the 7 careers Derek had destroyed. About the culture of fear that had kept everyone silent for years. She named names, cited dates, described incidents in detail that made people shift in their seats. When she finished, she looked at Derek. You're a bully, she said, and I have been a coward. But I'm not going to be a coward anymore. Nathaniel turned to Carlton Davis. You received a formal complaint from my son. What did you do with it? Carlton opened his mouth, closed it. Sweat dripped down his temple. I conducted an investigation. What did you find? Carlton looked at Derek, looked at Nathaniel, looked at the table. Nothing substantiated, he whispered. Nathaniel stared at him for a long moment. Then he reached over, picked up the timeline Isaac had prepared, and slid it across the table toward Carlton. This is 23 pages of documentation, Nathaniel said. Photos, emails, witness statements. And you found nothing substantiated? Carlton didn't answer. Nathaniel stood up. He walked to the windows and looked out at the city. The room held its breath. Derek Caldwell, Nathaniel said without turning around, you're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You will not receive severance. You will not receive a reference. And I will be contacting our legal department to determine whether your conduct rises to the level of criminal liability. Derek's face went white. Not pale, white. The color of something that has been drained. You can't do that, Derek said. His voice cracked. I built this place. I've been here 15 years. You can't just... Nathaniel turned around, looked at Derek with the same expression he had worn when he saw the mop bucket next to his son's chair. I just did, Nathaniel said. Security. 2 men in uniform appeared in the doorway. Derek stared at them, stared at Nathaniel, stared at Isaac, who was sitting perfectly still, his face revealing nothing. This isn't over, Derek said. He was backing toward the door now, his dignity in shreds, his 15-year career collapsing behind him like a building that had been built on a foundation of cruelty. I have lawyers, I have friends on the board. You think you can just... I don't think, Nathaniel said. I know. Walk him out. The security guards took Derek by the arms. He tried to pull away, tried to say something else, but the words died in his throat as they led him out of conference room A, past the glass walls, past the interns who were watching with their mouths open, past the department heads who were already planning how to distance themselves from him. The door closed. Nathaniel sat back down. He looked at Carlton Davis. You have 30 days to find another position. I suggest you start looking today. Carlton nodded, picked up his legal pad, walked out of the room without looking at anyone. Nathaniel looked at the 5 interns. His gaze stopped on Haley Moore. You watched, Nathaniel said. You saw what happened. And you said nothing. Haley's face crumpled. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. Nathaniel nodded slowly. Fear is understandable, but silence has consequences. You will spend the rest of your career thinking about this moment. I hope you remember it the next time someone needs you to speak. Haley buried her face in her hands. The other 4 interns stared at the table, unable to look at anyone. Nathaniel turned to the rest of the room. This company has a culture problem. That's not Derek's fault alone. It's all of your faults. Every single person in this room who saw something and said nothing owns a piece of this. He looked at Brenda. Except you. You finally spoke. That took courage. Thank you. Brenda nodded, wiped her eyes. Nathaniel stood up, put his hand on Isaac's shoulder. Come on, son, let's go find you a real desk. They walked out of conference room A together, father and son, leaving behind a room full of people who would never forget what they had witnessed. Isaac didn't say anything as they walked down the hallway. Neither did Nathaniel. They just walked, past the glass-walled intern suite, past the break room, past the conference rooms, past the corner offices. Nathaniel stopped outside the door to the 14th floor's best remaining office. Sunlight poured through the windows. A view of the river. A desk made of real wood. A chair that cost more than Isaac's car. This is yours, Nathaniel said, if you want it. Isaac looked at the office, looked at his father, thought about the storage room, thought about the coffee stain, thought about the mop bucket and the folding table and the fluorescent light that still flickered somewhere in the back of his mind. I don't want it, Isaac said. Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. No, no. I want to earn it. I want to sit in that conference room across from people who don't know who I am and prove that I belong there. Not because of you, because of me. And Nathaniel looked at his son for a long moment. Then he smiled. The first real smile Isaac had seen on his father's face in weeks. That's exactly what I would have said, Nathaniel said. Come on, let's get you a better folding table. They both laughed. It was a small moment, a private moment, the kind of moment that wouldn't make it into any business magazine or Forbes profile. But it was real, and it was theirs. The next morning, Isaac arrived at 7:30. A fresh white shirt, a new tie, the same briefcase. He walked through the lobby past the same marble floors and the same waterfall feature. Patricia, the receptionist, stood up when she saw him. Her face was red. Her hands were shaking. Mr. Owens, she said, I'm so sorry. I should have said something. I should have. Isaac held up his hand. You didn't pour the coffee, he said. You just didn't stop it. There's a difference. He walked past her, took the elevator to the 14th floor, walked past the glass-walled intern suite where 5 new MacBooks sat on 5 new desks, waiting for 5 interns who had learned a very expensive lesson about silence. He walked past the storage room. The door was open. Inside, the folding table was gone. The mop bucket was gone. The boxes of archived binders had been moved to a proper storage closet. The room was empty now, clean, waiting for someone else to fill it with something other than cruelty. Isaac walked to the corner of the floor where the service elevator had been. The filing cabinets had been moved. The folding table was gone. In its place was a proper desk, a real chair, a window that looked out at the sky. A welcome kit sat on the desk. Branded notebook, engraved pen, leather portfolio, and a small card with a handwritten note. Welcome to Whitfield. You belong here. Brenda. Isaac picked up the card, read it twice, smiled. He sat down at the desk, opened his laptop, and went back to work. There's something you need to understand about stories like this. They happen every day. Not exactly like this. Not always with a CEO father walking through the door at the perfect moment. But the small cruelties, the public humiliations, the quiet witnesses who look away, the systems that protect the powerful and punish the weak, that happens every single day. In offices, in schools, in restaurants, in neighborhoods, everywhere. The question is not whether it happens. The question is what you do when you see it. Do you look away? Do you tell yourself it's not your problem? Do you tell yourself someone else will handle it? Or do you speak? Because here's the truth. Derek Caldwell didn't happen in a vacuum. He happened because 14 people watched him pour coffee on a young man's shirt and did nothing. He happened because a receptionist handed over a welcome packet without meeting anyone's eyes. He happened because an HR director took a phone call instead of filing a report. He happened because 5 interns laughed at jokes they knew were wrong because they were afraid of being the next target. Derek happened because everyone let him. But Brenda? Brenda happened because one person finally decided that her mortgage was less important than her soul. Brenda happened because she looked at a young man sitting next to a mop bucket and saw herself. Brenda happened because she was tired of being a coward. You don't have to be a CEO's son to deserve dignity. You don't have to have a father in the corner office to deserve respect. Every single person who walks through your door, who sits at your table, who stands in your lobby, they deserve to be treated like human beings. That's not complicated. That's not political. That's just being a decent person. So here's the question. The one that matters. The one you're going to carry with you for the rest of the day, whether you want to or not. The next time someone pours coffee on someone else, metaphorically or literally, what are you going to do? Are you going to look away? Or are you going to be Brenda? Think about it. And if this story meant something to you, if it made you angry, if it made you hopeful, if it made you want to be better, then share it. Because the only thing more powerful than a bully is a room full of people who refuse to stay silent. Subscribe if you want more stories about justice, dignity, and the quiet power of doing the right thing. See you in the next one.